Given I'm using the fire background, if I say I've had this video on the back burner for a while, would that mean I'm making a pun? I'm covering Innocent Beanie's One Shot on Me, just to make that clear. I'll be skipping the first 3.5 minutes, as they consist of a disclaimer with, by my count, 4 separate spelling errors. And although this is not the biggest deal in the world, I would recommend putting your text through spell check, just to avoid errors like this in the future. Followed by an introduction to the topic of the video at hand, and then Beanie playing the entirety of my Hiding in Private one-shot. This isn't me criticizing that, by the way. This is a one-shot on a one-shot, so that is perfectly understandable. However, due to the fact that the video in question is 2 minutes long without any interruption from Beanie, I'm just going to be skipping the Beanie's actual point. If you want to know exactly what I said, you can go watch my one-shot on Hiding in Private.
Yes, we can both agree that there are people who get mad at anything, including example of made-up gay representation that they themselves made to get mad at. But that doesn't defeat Hiding in Private's argument, because the entire point was that people weren't even looking too deep to find an issue.
No, it was that the intense backlash to it proved its revolutionary nature. At least that was the point Hiding in Private was making in the clip I was responding to. How deep the critics had to look wasn't really even mentioned. All that was brought up is that these criticisms exist as if that in of itself disproved what Lily said.
Remember, this started with Lily's claim that the gay representation in Steven Universe is blink and you'll miss it. Hiding in Private's main point is that this is a blatant lie about the representation in the show, and saying homophobes getting mad at it aren't even looking too deep into blink and you'll miss it moments.
But this is argued through merely pointing out the existence of a bigoted hate base, which I argue does not actually debunk Lily's point. After all, the feelings of the irrationally bigoted are, well, irrational. Furthermore, I'd argue that using the backlash as evidence this was meaningful representation fails to make sense because the bigoted have gone after pieces of media where there wasn't representation on the same basis they went after Steven Universe. Now, I should note, none of this is me saying that Steven Universe does not have meaningful representation. That's an entirely different discussion. What I'm arguing is that Hiding in Private came to this conclusion through a faulty method of reasoning.
Hence the hint towards the relationship between Pink Diamond and Pink Pearl and how it could be seen as abusive. It's highly implied this is the case, but not exactly outright stated. But a potentially toxic relationship wasn't the main issue detractors of this nature would bring up. They'd instead bring up the rather blatant examples of representation like, I don't know, just spitballing, an entire episode that started with the marriage of Sapphire and Ruby, aka the gems who made Garnet, and their very clear romantic relationship as two women. There are many other examples of this, but this is really the most in-your-face one. So, firstly, I gotta ask how these other examples at all relate to what Hiding in Private is even saying.
Because I point out that there's no contradiction between the backlash Hiding in Private mentioned and the representation being how Lily described it. Again, these people have gotten mad over representation that existed in their own heads. Them being upset with blink and you'll miss it representation should not be surprising. Now, again, this does not mean that Lily is right per se, but this does mean that Hiding in Private failed to debunk her.
And second, I gotta ask, what are you even talking about? None of this contradicts what they're saying, it just shows that people have gotten mad at stuff for less.
Therefore meaning we can't use the reaction of the bigoted as a means to determine how good representation is.
If you want to actually tackle Hiding in Private's points, you need to find examples of people getting angry over small non-existent representations in Steven Universe, which, that's gonna be hard to find, since the show has a lot of space lesbians.
Why? Again, that's an entirely separate conversation from the one I'm having in this one-shot. Anyway, that's all I want to cover, so final thoughts. Although this one-shot was not terrible, it did at the very least make notable enough mistakes to where I felt the need to cover it. Good night, and good luck.